Hit the recording, Jeremy.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, Rich, we'll talk about Sam Knox's email today. Welcome to I guess this is week 3 of the level 2. As you know, we're trying to keep this short and sweet. We'll have 45 minutes or so of content and then 15 minutes open discussion. Dave Kroc and D-Ray Tucker are going to present today on game management pregame. Both are Division I officials, lots of experience. Like I said last week, if you've ever been in a pregame with either one of these guys, I've learned more than in an hour than I have in an entire year sometimes. Excellent pregame usually leads to an excellent game, but you got to manage the game, and that's really what level 2 is all about. So I'm going to turn it over to Dave and D-Ray. I think they've got some slides to share. Everybody should be unmuted. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. If you have a question, however, feel free to come off of mute and ask the question, and we'll also leave some time at the end for questions. All yours, guys.
Thanks, Bob. I'm going to share my screen. Host disabled, participant sharing screen. So if you could just let me share my screen, it'll be okay.
Yeah, Bob, you might have to make him the host, and then Dave, when you're done, make sure you turn it back over to Bob. You got to go to participant Good. And then triple.
All right, I am the host now. Okay. So, so I want to welcome everybody. We've got some slides here that we'll walk through. Let me put it in presentation mode. My name is Dave Kroc. My co-participant is D-Ray Tucker. And together we're going to walk you through this part of game management. So I want to start off today really quickly with an anecdote. And the anecdote is as follows. Doesn't matter if it's high school or college. I was in a game recently, and the team that was down, maybe 10-4 was the score in the game, middle of the fourth quarter. The team was down, has the ball. They're bringing it across. They get it across, bring it up under the restraining line. Again, doesn't matter if it's college or high school. The ball carrier gets kind of spun around, and I am in a 3-man mechanic. I am the single, so the ball was on the opposite side between the lead and the trail. So if you can imagine that, I'm staring across, 40 yards across, and I see this young man get spun around. They're down by 6 or 8 goals at this point, and I'm anticipating a flag being thrown for a hold. And nothing really happens. The lead and the trail were both looking at the play, and they both passed on a call. It was right in front of the visiting bench, which was the team that was down. And the bench, of course, exploded, asking for a hold and a body check. That player should be ejected, blah, blah, blah. Regardless of the situation, we have an opportunity. This is one of those opportunities where we need to take a look at the game that's going on in front of us, and what we're calling and how we're calling it and why we're going to make calls. So it's the fourth quarter. Again, the score is, let's say, 10-4. The team with 4 has the ball, and this guy gets spun around. A flag is not thrown, and the bench is exploding. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about this to introduce this concept of game management. So what I want to do right there is I want to pause. I want to see what questions you guys have, thinking, just to get everybody in thinking mode about maybe what people would be thinking about at that point. Whether or not a flag should be thrown or whatever. So I'll just pause here. What do you guys think what should the crew do?
Hey, Dave, FYI, we've got a lot of people that have joined since I made you host. I can no longer unmute people.
Okay,
so
hang on a second.
Click next to their name. You'll see a button that says allow to unmute.
All right, hang on a second. Let me catch up. Let me see here.
Under, you got to go to attendees. You might be looking at panelists.
Yeah, I am. You're right.
And everybody down at the bottom doesn't have a microphone next to them. You should have a button that says allow to unmute.
Nope, I'm on the panel.
You want to hand it back off to Bob and let him?
That's okay. We can just use the chat and do that later. If anybody can't unmute, just post something in the chat and I'll make sure the presenters see it.
All right. So let me just take a look here. Chat. So all panelists and attendees. My question is not shouting. What should the crew do? If you're watching this game as an observer and you see this 10-4 game and the team with 4 has the ball, fourth quarter halfway through, and this guy gets spun around, just hit us up in chat. What do you think the crew should do? All right. I'll wait for a couple other responses. I'll say quickly to Rob, from my vantage point at single all the way across the field, it is difficult for me to know if it's a hold. It's not that obvious, but the player was spun around. Yeah, so Matt Murphy, throw a flag, right, support the bench. Arnie, don't deviate too far from being consistent. Okay, which is a great point. You know, for the whole game, the single would not have reached out in this situation, but I'm putting you guys in my spot as the single. So it's a good, you know, we can, you know, if there's more responses, please feel free to continue. But, you know, it's a pickle that we're in. And the question is, from a game management perspective, what should we do? I think as we go through this presentation today, we'll come back to this towards the end and talk about what we did, and we'll talk about what could have been done as far as the crew that was on the field. But yeah, I mean, it's not a clear situation of, I don't know if it was a hold. The other two people were closer. The score is 10-4. A lot of things come into play in terms of game management. So I'll stop this from being any more painful than it currently is. And we'll move on. And I think from that point, game management really starts, from my perspective, with the pregame. Because there's an R assigned, the R is in charge. And one of the best R's that I've worked with is D-Ray Tucker. So D-Ray, if you want to talk to us a little bit, before we flip slides or talk any further, if you want to talk about pregame, and if you're the R coming into a situation, if you want to talk about what you're concerned with from a game management perspective from in the pregame.
Well, every pregame should serve the same purpose every time we engage in it. And that gets us to game management. Those things are, one, get our professional and family lives out of our head for the next 2 hours and put it in lacrosse. So one, I call it calibrating my mind. So I want the pregame to calibrate my mind and everyone else on the crew. And at the same time, I'm looking to create a sense of teamwork within the crew, because we're it. Nobody's going to sub out. God forbid one of us drops out for injury or something worse. So we're it. So just like teams do their pregame warm-ups, pregame for officials is our warm-up. And it's all above the neck. Because I think that's where we usually get ourselves in trouble, is when we goof up above the neck. I don't remember where your question was, Dave, but so I prepare my pregame based on who the teams are and who the crew is. And early in the season, obviously, we haven't seen any of the crew, or excuse me, we haven't seen any of the teams, and we probably haven't seen each other very much. So it needs to be more focused on the basics. Some things like new rules, right? Calibrate our mind, make sure we've got the new rules in place. So we got the restarts this year. Illegal crosses are going to be 2 minutes no matter what. They can come back in the game, things like that. We can sprinkle in some things like, well, you know, we haven't seen these teams yet, but I know that coach is still there, and he always asks questions A, B, and C. So maybe we need to be ready, all three of us, or both of us, be ready to answer some of those questions. And I've been doing this a number of years, and one of the best things you can do is kind of have some standard political answers, right? Not smart ass answers, which is my inclination, but good, pattern, proven answers that don't commit you to anything, right? Just saw the chat pop up, so I'm on squirrel mode. Keep me dialed in, Dave, on your question.
Yeah, just from a perspective of game management, right? So we can talk about rules, we can talk about positioning, or whether we know the teams or not. But from a game management perspective, what would you be looking at? How do you want to run the game with maybe a first flag or something?
Okay, so there's an adage in officiating circles that whatever you permit, you promote. And if you come in with that mindset that whatever I'm going to allow, whatever I don't call, whatever I deem to be legal, I'm promoting. So we need to be, especially early in the season, but early in every game, we need to be looking for that first 50-50. Was the stick a little high? Was the kid a little late? Did he have too much thrust with his stick, right? He got his hands out, but did he thrust too much to contact? That 50-50 call. That call will make or break your game. If we let it go, you've just told everybody, game's on, boys. That, at the very minimum, that's going to be allowed today. Otherwise, we're inconsistent, and we frustrate them, and everything we hear, we pretty much deserve. Whereas if you take it, if you flag that and say, nope, that's going to be beyond our line today. Now we've set a standard, and we can manage the game. They can react to us, and we can manage them now that standard's set. So if the next one's even harder, later, nastier, well, now we've got 2 minutes, perhaps we've got locked in, depending on what the player does. But we've already set that standard. If whatever you permit, you promote. So if you don't permit it, smart coaches, experienced players are going to pick up on the fact that they can't do that today.
Right.
Matter of
I think
fact.
that speaks to the early control portion, right? If you agree from a slash is a great one to take a look at, because slashes can vary depending upon skill, or perhaps how hard things are, or how hard they swing, or where they swing. But that speaks to the early control in this, right? Right. So proper warnings, consistency, right, and avoid coaching. We have D-Ray, just from your perspective, are you a big guy out there talking about, hey, let them move in there, or do you just maybe say that once and then get on with calling interference or screens, or do you continue to talk to the players as we go through the game?
I consider myself pretty chatty, but I also try to speak with a purpose. So you should never hear me say on a face-off to encouraging the players to get it out. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They do not need my verbal encouragement. However, if I've got a short stick defender who's tired and hasn't gotten off, and he's standing on top of the crease and he's being sticky with his guarding technique of the attacking team, then yeah, I will probably make, again, not loud enough necessarily for the bench to hear, but certainly loud enough for him to hear. He needs to let him move. And again, so that's the same thing. What I'm permitting, I'm promoting. I'm permitting it, but by the same token, he knows I'm watching it. And he can't continue at that pace, or he'll draw the flag.
Right.
But I want to also caution, anytime you verbally during play make a warning, you want to make it a general warning. You don't want to. You would not want to call it 15. Let him move. Now you're calling him out. You're coaching. If you just make a general announcement, and my theory is, as long as the more you use your voice, the more they become accustomed to you are watching them. But if you're calling them out individually, coaches pick up on that in a minute and tell you to stop talking to their team.
Mm-hmm.
If I say let them move in there, I'm not talking to the team. I'm talking to everybody.
Right. What do you do? What do you do if you're in a game and somebody throws, sticking with the slash call, because it's very much one of an interpretation from officials. If somebody throws a weak slash, flags down, play ends, they're going to call they're going to relay the slash call. You may roll your eyes a bit. How do you handle that as the crew chief?
From the standpoint of maybe we that one we could have let go. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's certainly part of it. The last thing I want to do is ever have anybody on my crew think that my judgment is going to replace theirs. But by the same token, we're striving for consistency and we're striving for cohesion within the crew. And you may hear that's going to be the phrase I've used before, that's going to be a really tough standard to maintain all game. We can't be that strict today.
Right.
But then again, in your 10-4 game, or God forbid, 13-1, maybe that standard gets tightened down a little bit so it doesn't turn into something other than a lacrosse game.
All right. Speaking of tighten,
You like that?
I do. That was almost like we planned this. So with what you're saying, kind of, if you can walk us through this, with a proper first call on a hit or a slash, does that allow you to manage the game better, or does that make it more difficult?
I think it makes it easier. We've sent a message. Every time we send a flag out of our pocket onto the field, we're sending a message. And so in this photograph, I would hope whoever's watching that, whoever's got that in their area, is reaching for their flag. There's a foul there to be had. We don't know how long it is. There's a myriad of factors that can go in to determine what the foul is and how long it is. But I think there's a foul there. By calling that, then the next time the guy does something similar, there's retaliation at the other end of the field because their attackman got ate up by the pole, so my pole's going to eat up their attackman. I've already set the standard. It's a lot, and I can even tighten up because they're not getting the message. So tightening up is either more minutes, or maybe I'm calling things that I maybe didn't. I don't say didn't call. I'm calling them quicker, stricter. Makes sense.
Right.
Whereas if I didn't make that call that we see in the picture, right? And now the same thing happens at the other end, only it's a little bigger, and the kid gets knocked on his butt, and he takes a minute to get up. We didn't call it down at the one end. It's awful hard to call it down at the other because we permitted it.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah, I think if you make a good crew chief is going to go in and set his crew up to have an appropriate initial set of calls on pushes, holds, where unnecessary roughness may lie, what an illegal body check is potentially, although that's a little bit more defined than the other personal fouls, where a slash is. It makes it, once you set that line appropriately, It is easier to tighten. It is a little bit more difficult to loosen, especially if you start low with some really, maybe some weak slash calls, because then you're headed towards a game where you're going to have either crew inconsistency between quarters, or you could possibly, just have to face facts and tell coaches we have to tighten it up, at some point, maybe midway through the game. We'll get into those adjustments soon. Okay. So here's a series of pictures. That's fabulous. I'm pretty sure I'm covering up the title here somehow. Right. So in terms of, we talked about personal fouls a little bit here, and that's what we focused on. But in terms of technicals, what advice do you normally give your crews at the beginning of games as you go through looking at the technical fouls?
The play on. Two things. Play ons are a cheap way on our part about establishing control of the game, game management. We're inserting ourselves in the game, but we're not putting anybody down. Two, it's again, a play on is during a loose ball. Nobody likes watching loose ball scrums. Nobody. So we're picking the ball up and we're getting back to playing across. Another win for us. And and the third one goes into the top of the title again. Preserve flow, get the ball picked up. Oh, and it's not costing anybody man down. That was the other one. So nobody has to serve time for any play on. So anytime the ball's down, I feel we have to have a strict standard on what's a push, a free hand in the back. That's a great one to get, right? How many times are these kids trying to do a one-handed pickup of a ground ball, and he just lays his hand on his opponent's shoulder and back. Thank you. Playing with the free hand, ball goes white. And the beauty is a fast restart. There's not a lot of time to lodge a complaint because I just ordered all the white. I wait a beat to make sure my partners know what we're doing, and hopefully I'm loud enough and they heard me. And I'm hacking it in, and we're going the other way. And the coach has literally a half a second to decide if he's going to complain to me or he's going to go back and coach his team, because we're playing ball. Play-ons are wonderful, wonderful tools, but they got to be kept short, because the longer you got to play on go, the more chances there's going to be another technical foul, and it's going to be against the first team. And now you have the wonderful situation of simultaneous fouls, which we are not getting into right now.
No.
But if you have a short play on, you won't have a simultaneous foul.
Right. I like that. All right. So as we continue forward and carry forward here, with a good pregame, we're now down to performing on that pregame, and the opportunities that we have to talk as a crew really come during dead ball time during the game. So there may be a reminder or two or something else that gets spat out before the game, but once we start, we're going and we're observing live. It's live ball. We're observing each other as we try to operate to our standards that have been set. So D-Ray's got his standards. I may have mine. Other people could potentially have, depending upon the game, and they could have different things that they want to focus on, and that's okay. As the R, that is why you're assigned to that position on the crew, is to drive those discussion points. So as we go forward in the game, let's say there's a first timeout or there's a stick check or whatever, it's an opportunity for us to start to get some real-time feedback. How do we think we're doing? In addition to how many timeouts in college, how many violations in high school, a good crew chief may ask his crew, if there's really nothing to talk about during a dead ball, everything's going well, who's won more face-offs? And let's talk about that. Is there something going on that we're missing? But dead ball time is kind of a big deal. We certainly want to get everybody off the field safe, which observers will be looking for is what you do. If you call a timeout and then turn around and start writing on your card, you're probably going to get called out in an observation. You want to make sure that everybody crosses successfully. You want to be in the right position. And then once everybody is towards their end on the sideline, then you start your 2-minute timer. And you make sure if you get a stick, you get a stick, you do your stick check. And while all that's going on, you have these conversations. And what you're concerned about is, where's the pace? Where is the tempo? Are we on or off our game plan? Are the teams, the players, giving us different looks, or are they acting differently than we anticipated? Do we need to tighten up? Do we need to loosen up? Where are we on this? Where have our past calls been, and what are our future calls going to be? So dead ball time is not, it is a time to take a breather. It is a time to maybe tell a joke if it's appropriate. But it's also a time to take a temperature check of the crew of where we are. And I think it's a very big deal for us during these dead ball times, not just, this is showing you a stick check with 4 refs. Now, D-Ray and I were having a debate here. I'm not sure if 4 refs is because there's a CBO and they felt like coming on the field, or if the person taking this picture got hit on the field and they just see 4 refs now. But 4 refs is a bit much. But, stick checks tend to be busy times. But if it's a timeout or if it's a quarter change, some of this stuff might not be going on, and you really have time to dig in to start to talk about how the game is going. So as you go through and you look at this, D-Ray talked about in the pregame, talking about defining the edge. What is a slash in this game? If you have a top team in the state playing a middling or a lower or a newer team, you're going to be looking at different things than if you have 2 rivalry teams playing each other. So you're going to have to define the edge. And during a dead ball, you're going to want to look at making sure that you're living up to that, and then whether or not you need to tighten or loosen it. I'm not really going to speak to intention versus ineptitude, although what I will say is I think this has more to do with skill versus kill, as it was told to me a long time ago. If people are trying to kill other players with take their heads off with cross checks and body checks, that's much different than somebody, just being new to the game or not having as much skill as the other team, and they can wind up looking really bad on the field. But you got to make the calls, and you have to have this discussion. To D-Ray's point on play-ons, I find myself quite often as an R talking to officials saying, look, that play-on you had was great, but you got to kill it quicker before, right? Because we're starting to let it drag on into something else. The same thing with penalties. Although now in high school, it's not just 1 flag down, it could be 2 flags down before you actually kill the play. But when you kill the play, I would rather see people kill the play quicker than get the second flag out, yell flag down, make sure everybody gets it, then kill the play. I mean, seriously, if they're not scoring, kill the play as you toss the flag, and then everybody will be fine with it. What we're trying to do here is prevent the kids from carrying on and escalating, whether it's a play on or whether it's a first or a second flag. Just kill the play. Same thing with stuff around the crease. If somebody ends up stepping in the crease and then they get cross-checked, don't throw the flag, let play continue, and then blow the whistle. Blow the whistle while you're throwing a flag, and let's get this thing stopped. Right? So find teachable moments. This is more about, if you're the referee, what are we looking at? Do we see each other? Are we in the right spot? Did somebody were there dual whistles going on where the single is blowing the end line shot out? Was it in the corner and people were confused? Or was the single literally questioning whether the lead was paying attention? What are we doing? right? So talk about that from positioning and mechanics. As an R, find those teachable moments during these dead balls. And then be sure you're addressing and talking about, whatever sportsmanship we have. Sportsmanship on the striped crew. Sorry about that. You may be the R working with an inexperienced official, and if that official is not having a great game, you got to pick them up a little. You got to tell them. We'll talk about this in a slide or two. But our sportsmanship is a reflection of all of us. And if somebody's having a bad day, or somebody had a bad day and can't let some of that go before they get on the field, or if there's mixed feelings about a coach or a team, we got to make sure that we're addressing that. Some of that is very hard. I've been in games where an official has checked out for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or a quarter or more because of they made a bad call, or somebody was riding them, or blah blah blah. They're all valid reasons for people to change away, or change from who they are into somebody who's just shutting everything out. But you can't officiate a game 2-man or 3-man without the full crew involved.
Dave, I want to say one thing on that last bullet point, the sportsmanship.
Yeah, go ahead.
In addition to reminding the players, to clean it up and let them move in the crease and some of those other things we're warning them when they're doing things that are bad. I honestly look for, in every game, multiple situations where I can congratulate a player or encourage a player that I saw him, he had a chance to hit his opponent in the head, and he got off the gas, right? He made an effort to lower his shoulder and use his body and throw a clean, legal body check as opposed to something illegal. And I'll get close enough to that player and say, hey, I like what you did there. Or good job getting off the gas. Or you really could have hurt him. You made a good choice. Encouraging them when they do good things. And again, that's not coaching, right? I'm not calling them out, but I'm encouraging. And again, it does two things. Don't forget, one, you're getting them a little bit on your side. Now, I won't lie about that. But again, the other one is he knows you're watching. Not only you're watching for the death, you're watching the good stuff too. So again, I'm promoting what I want to see happen more of.
Right.
Again, I'm a chatty guy. Thank you.
All right, that's okay. Good stuff. All right. So again, we get into all of these different things. Is this legal? The picture as it stands is legal. It's a great picture. It's a V-hole. And it depends, just in this case, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about this. If this player restricts forward motion towards us, towards the bottom left hand of your screen, it's probably should be called a hold. If this player does not, and he keeps him in this check position while they proceed forward, or if the player tries to turn and run through the V hold, then you probably don't have a hold, and that's great defensive positioning. But these are the things where a picture doesn't tell the whole story, but it starts to get you thinking about what we should be looking for and why we're calling stuff. Right? We talked about the short play on. It's very important to just blow the whistle. Sometimes if there is a play on, sometimes you don't even need to yell play on. You just need to just blow the whistle and assign the ball, right? Blow the whistle in this bottom left-hand picture. This looks like it could be a push. Blow the whistle, shout push, and assign the ball to white, right? That looks like in both of these different situations what you could do. If you choose not, and you raise your hand and yell play on, what you're asking for is the next 2 seconds of the game to continue, where somebody could turn around and slash the other player, and then you've got your hand up and you're getting into simultaneous fouls, and then you're on Tom Cummings' rule test, and that's just all.
No one wants to be there. No one wants to be there, Tom.
You need to know it, but nobody wants to be there. That's right. Yeah, I think this one is reminding us again from a game management perspective. So this starts to get away from game management itself and into communication to coaches, benches, and players. If you have somebody who withholds the ball on a face-off, or if they use the back of their cross during play, the correct call is to say withholding the ball from play and use the correct sign, which is in the back of the book. It's a hand over another hand. That's a withhold. However, instead of saying illegal procedure, you can signal illegal procedure, communicate that there's a foul, you're assigning the ball, and then instead of saying illegal procedure, just say withholding the ball from play and then assign the ball. It's more effective to get everybody on the same page. Instead of saying illegal procedure, we're going white. The next question out of the bench's mouth is, what did the guy do? And instead of focusing on the field, getting somebody for the restart, making sure they're 5 yards apart, what you're doing is you're explaining things to the bench. So just use the correct hand motions, first of all. Use the correct signals. But second, communicate what you need to everybody, nice, loud, and clear. And D-Ray is one of the best at this. You're pausing the game, so please address everybody. He's withholding the ball from play. We're going this way. No one's going to know. Everybody's going to understand with lacrosse IQ what a legal procedure looks like. And even if they don't, they're going to know that they withheld the ball from play and we're going the other way. Right? So then the last piece of my part here is to talk about the ramp. And if you're not comfortable going through this, you don't have to go through all 5 steps. There are 5 steps should you care or should you have game IQ as an official, where you could say, hey, coach, I think we've had enough, right? And you kind of give them a physical stop sign where the coach is bothering you. And you tell them we've had enough. And really what you're saying, you need to say it to both benches. We've had enough. We're all good here. Even if one coach is out of control and one is not. We've had enough. And then you move on. And then from there, you have a couple of opportunities. If the coach continues to berate or argue over the play while their team has the ball, you can call a conduct, which you just tweet your whistle and you just turn to the table and you say conduct, which is one hand out. It's half of an unsportsmanlike conduct. We're going, and assign the ball in the other direction. And it's probably going to be associated with some explanation, which should be, coach, I already told you we had enough. It should be we, not I. We had enough. And then you move on with the game. Blow the whistle in, give the ball to the other team, blow the whistle in, and keep moving. If they're arguing, if they continue to argue, or if they're arguing while the other team has the ball, the conduct foul is now a flag down. So the opponent has the ball, it's a flag down, you throw it, and then when it's appropriate, you stop play, and then you tell everybody, conduct foul on the bench, right? And, if it's still time serving, that's great. If they scored a goal, you wave the flag off. But the point is, you're escalating. You're not just taking the ball away in this case, you're going to take a player off the field for 30 seconds because of the bench. I would advocate talking about the warning, coaches, we've had enough, making an official warning if time allows, talking to both benches. You go to the one coach, you say, coach, we've had enough. If you have a question, talk to us. If you have comments, keep them to yourself because we're not interested. That allows you to skip some of this conduct stuff and just move straight to a 1-minute unsportsmanlike conduct on the bench. You don't have to go through 1, 2, and 3 to get to 4 here with the USC. If the coach is taking your mind or your team, your crew's minds away from the game because they're just constantly berating or not letting go something, you can put the 1 minute, you can put a flag down and give them the 1 minute non-releasable unsportsmanlike conduct. It's okay. However, it has to be associated with a flag down. If you fail to put a flag down, when you go to fill out your paperwork or when you go to justify the call to your assigner and then to the AD, it's going to be very difficult when they're reviewing film and they don't see a flag down. So put the flag down and make the call. If it's a dead ball and they continue to argue, you have to put an additional flag down and add that unsportsmanlike, dead ball unsportsmanlike conduct foul into the mix. So if you have a slash and the coach that's against on blue, let's say, and the white coach says that player should be ejected, this is ridiculous, you guys are stupid, and starts swearing, you could put a flag down on the coach, and then you have to serve and have a time serving foul for blue for 1, 2, or 3 minutes for a slash. And then you also have to add on the 1 minute or 2 minute or 3 minute unsportsmanlike conduct as the crew decides on the back of it as a dead ball foul. And what you have there is not only does the coach on the white team, they're not only, losing the man up advantage, they're also losing the ball because of the way simultaneous fouls work. And if you as an R, or if you want to be an R, and you don't understand Rule 7, simultaneous fouls, it's going to be difficult. But this is a very handy tool because he may have deserved the ball in a man-up advantage for his team, her team, but because of their behavior, they've lost the ball. And it's now going the other way in an even situation, 5-on-5. And that sends a pretty strong message. And then from there, we all have varying limits, but there are times and periods that call for just simply ejecting a coach or an assistant coach, especially. There should be no reason an assistant coach is out of control. And if he's there or she's there, and they're this much of a problem, eject the assistant coach. That's within our rights. We have to be able to focus on the game for safety, for obvious fouls, and for advantage. And if we're being distracted by anybody on the bench, they don't deserve to be there. But above all, with all the paperwork that all this is going to cause, you must have a flag down on the field. It must be clear, and it must be one flag for one instance. Don't throw 2 flags because they continue mouthing you. All right. So we talked about an anecdote. We're going to come back to that anecdote. D-Ray gave you a great pregame, some great pregame perspective, and I talked a little bit about during the game. We're kind of wrapping it up here. So D-Ray, in terms of this slide, in terms of performance on the field, what do we, there's 6 things here on the screen. What are we looking at here?
It's a self-check. When you arrive at the game, or when you think back to your last game, the performance you did on the last game, how many of those 6 points do you think would apply to you if you're just watching the film of yourself, or if there's an observer watching you? Are you relaxed, confident, happy? How many of those things could you check off your list, off this list? The goal is all 6. Although I would say I don't particularly like to look with the hand in the pockets, but maybe that's the hockey official in me. But other than that, everything in that slide, that should be your goal. And if you're not there, what's preventing you from being happy on the lacrosse field? What's preventing you from being approachable? Again, questions deserve answers. Critiques deserve flags, but questions deserve answers. If you're not confident, dig in the book. Ask another official. Doesn't have to be me, for heaven's sakes. It could be anyone that you recognize has something that you want to get better at. I don't need to define any of those for you. You all can read.
Right. Right.
But if you're missing more than 2 of these, you're probably wondering why you're not getting better assignments or getting more assignments. It might be because you're missing a couple of them.
Right.
And if you're able to check these boxes, you're managing yourself, and therefore you're managing the game.
Right. When it comes to these 6, I think it has to do a lot with, and just to kind of continue to wrap this up, I think it has a lot to do with something that other people have talked about on other calls as we go through officiating, right? Ignore comments, answer questions using, these 6 types of approaches. And then when you meet insanity, you have to penalize it. That's really what this comes down to. If we're relaxed, confident, approachable, right, on the left side, coaches should feel comfortable asking us questions. If we are relaxed, confident, approachable, right, forgetting the right half, professional certainly, and coaches are not able to approach us in a similar manner, that's where the ramp comes back into play, right? And the last comment I'll say on this is, as the R, D-Ray, I don't know about you, but as the R, we're not only looking at this for ourselves, but we got to be looking at this from our crew perspective. If I have somebody who's not relaxed, confident, and approachable and professional, probably during a dead ball, I need to be addressing that.
Or rotating them to single side, yeah.
Yeah, or rotating away from the benches, right? Take a breather, man. Get away.
And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing in our mechanics that says we can't rotate away from what's causing us difficulty.
Yeah.
Don't continue to put yourself in front of the guy that is taking 2 bites out of your ass already.
Right.
Rotate. Let's give him some fresh meat. Let's give him the calm guy. Let's give him the guy that he hasn't yelled at yet. See if we can talk him off the ledge. One person made a point in the chat, and we talked about it back on the ramp. If the coach does get launched, because he has decided he no longer wants to be a lacrosse coach that day, that is a 1-minute non-releasable, not the full bird 3. That is Rule 512.
I think there was a rule change last year. Tom Cummings could probably address that. I think it was a rule change last year, 2 years ago, something along those lines.
Yeah, I don't think we made that entirely clear.
They're saying if the coach is an idiot, why penalize the team? So yeah, it's a rule change. It's a one. Yeah.
Yeah, the team's going to sit just 1 man locked in instead of the full bird 3 because the coach is going to have to leave. So yeah, that wasn't clear. Good catch. Thank you.
Hey, great job, D-Ray and Dave. Hey, Dave, if you want to turn the reins back over to Bob, I think he has something else real quick to get to. Someone else mentioned, again, one of the slides you were talking about withholding, and they were showing the illegal procedure, right? Withholding falls underneath the definitions of a legal procedure, but again, it has its own separate signal for that, which you mentioned in there as well. So,
Jeremy, another nuance in that slide is when you have withholding, don't just give a generic illegal procedure, which could mean one of 28 different things, right? If you have withholding, say withholding, and then of course give the proper signal, which the slide didn't indicate real well. But I think that's one of the nuances that's talking about. That goes into our communication. What are we saying when we say illegal procedure? Could be anything. What are we saying when we say withholding? Oh, okay, got it.
for sure. So, hey, great job, David and D-Ray. Thank you guys very much for that, Bob. It's your show again. If you want to, there you go.
I just want to walk through the email that came out today. Again, D-Ray, Dave, thank you so much. Excellent presentation. At level 2, it really is all about game management. Expect to know the rules, stay in the rule book, but really as you advance, you get better and better at game management. So that's certainly a topic we should address multiple times during the year. Feel free to call somebody on your way home. You had a situation that didn't go great. Call somebody, talk it over. Everybody's got their own way of handling it. The one thing that wasn't touched on, and it comes up once in a while, is humor. be very, very careful with humor. It usually gets you in more trouble than anything else. And also don't tell a coach to calm down. I tried that once. That doesn't go over well either. 2021 lacrosse memo. There's memos for all of the upcoming sports out from IHSA today. They're on the website. I expect most everybody got the email. If you aren't registered with IHSA, then we're going to quickly cover what was in this document. Some things for officials, some things for coaches. The season dates are right up front, right? End of season, and you'll see later on they're not sure what the end of season is going to look like yet, but the games start as soon as they get 7 practices in after April 5th. End of the season is targeted for the middle of June with a playoff after that. The rest of this stuff, the number of games, that's up to the coaches. You should be aware of the Illinois Department of Public Health information. There's a link to it right here, the sports policy. Everybody most likely has heard of it. I won't go over that right now. But what I do want to talk about are some of the game modifications, right? What it says here are stick checks should be limited to 1 per half. Again, coaches can request those, but the IHSA memo says 1 per half. Use common sense. Either have one guy get both sticks, wear gloves, have the kids drop them on the ground, whatever works for you in that game. But again, try to minimize contact, 1 stick check per half. Officials table, again, make sure this is set up right at the beginning of the game, not your responsibility to manage it during the game. And same thing for the benches, right? They may spread the benches out. They may let them go a little further down the field. They're doing that in football, but it's not your job to manage the bench. One of the items below, we should absolutely try to get a 90-second mask break, right? Everybody has to wear a mask on the field. 90-second mask break, somewhere around 6 minutes of each quarter. Use half the quarter as a guideline. The underclass games, you don't need to wait till the 6-minute mark. Find a good spot and let the kids come to the sideline, take their mask off, get some water. Pre-game conference, this has all been covered in all the other sports. 1 coach, minimize the players, no fist bumps, no handshakes. When you do the coaches talk, you can talk about the face-off rules. You don't need to bring the face-off guys together. You can talk to the coaches about that. If you're going to bring face-off guys together, 1, don't bring all the face-off guys together. Officials, masks are required at all times. Bottom line is find a mask and wear it. You won't be taking it off other than it breaks. The face-offs, the mechanic now is to put the ball on the ground and ask the players to go down after you step back. We're going to talk about face-offs next week. We're going to have a segment on face-offs, so we'll talk more about it then. But notice here that it says do not touch the heads of the crosses. Basically, put the ball down and get out of there. Give them verbal instructions to line them best you can. Again, get the ball down, get them down, get the ball faced off, and let's play lacrosse. We don't want to spend too much time in face-offs, especially this year. This last note is about the state series, the playoffs. They're not entirely sure what they're going to do yet. Tom, I don't know if you have more information about what Matt's thinking or if you're involved in this, but they're talking, the 2 options A and B here. Do you have any more information on or clarify anything?
He indicated that they want to try to play the full state series, and that in the past they've had the girls and the boys semis and championships at the same site, and if they play a full series, they'll have the girls at one site and the boys at a different site. But he's hoping that unless something comes up worse, that they're going to play the full series. That's what he's hoping for.
Excellent. Okay, I would say, questions, reach out to somebody from GLLOA. Go ahead, Jeremy.
We've had 2 so far that have commented or questions about requiring masks outdoors during play, right? And this is not a GLLOA policy. It's coming straight down from the state, from the IDPH. So at this current time, right, if we want to officiate these games, we as officials, will need to wear masks during live play. Is that what we're currently being told?
Yes, yes.
So
I
again,
tried to talk him out of it, but the state is being governed by the governor, so they have to have masks.
we
Yes.
know from, lacrosse games as well, or college games, people have been, forced to wear, masks the entire time, at different places. So, but this is, again, it is what it is. It's the policy right now, and that's what, if you want to officiate games in the state of Illinois for high school, currently this is a policy we have to abide by. So there's nothing we can do.
One item that's not mentioned here, I believe it is in the Illinois Department of Health memo. If you click on this link, I think it says that you need to have either a electronic whistle, which does not go well on a lacrosse field, or some type of whistle covers. Jeremy, do you know, have you looked at that recently?
No, I think last week we threw it around a little bit. I have not, and that's a good thing to question. I guess I would actually throw it to Tom the question, Matt Troha, if you could, if the IDPH is saying if there is a possibility of them using whistle covers versus masks the entire time. Again, we can throw it out there and trying our best to get, which we've already tried. We've already, this was the last 3 weeks in May. We've tried to work on this.
Yeah.
But,
I can ask Matt if a whistle cover is sufficient, but we have to wear a mask anyhow, so. Yeah.
Okay.
You know what, Bob, you didn't mention, we've had a brief discussion about the players are also going to have to wear masks. And, that's not our responsibility to do mask checks the whole game. I think it was brought up that if we have a problem and one of the coaches is complaining, then we have to get the athletic director or the team on site to go and talk to the coaches. You can request that of the coaches, but we're not going to stop play and call back a possible scoring chance because the kid doesn't have his mask on. So I think that's important to realize.
Yeah, good clarification, Tom. It's not our responsibility, right?
Right.
You see somebody's mask slipping down, you might whisper in their ear, hey, pull your mask up. But for the most part, if you watch the basketball games, it's tough to keep those masks on. We're just going to have to let the administration deal with that. Don't get involved in that. Just hand it over to the AD and the home team. Any questions?
black mask. So we had one that says it does the color matter. I think black mask is probably what matches us as officials much, best.
Right. We may have more clarification on all of this next week. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions coming in, potentially a follow-up memo from IHSA. But yeah, black masks are what we've seen also.
Timeout. Keyword, timeout.
Excellent. Thank you for attending. Timeout is the key word for today. Please
earlier. I apologize.
post it in the chat, and we will make sure you get credit for it. Again, next week we are going to do face-offs and offsides discussion. So come on back next
Jeremy, before they go, listen, on the stoppage of clock, it's got to be dead ball. Just because it gets a 6-minute mark and somebody's got the ball, do not kill the play. All right. I know people in basketball
John.
have to score. Live ball is live ball. It's got to be a dead ball, gentlemen. Do not stop the clock just because it's a 6-minute mark. Okay. If it goes to 5 minutes, fine. Goes out, maybe out of bounds. Stoppage, a natural stoppage.
I know, after a goal during a timeout, find a natural stoppage. Yeah, I think
basketball. Yeah, we had some issues with some guys in basketball after made basketball still live, killing it, and give them that timeout.
Right on, John. Right on, buddy.
All right, that's important.
We might need more for clarification, Tom, but on like a loose ball push, a quick restart, I don't think you want to turn on the mask timeout.
That's going to be a timeout. That's a dead ball. That's we got no option there. That's a dead ball because they could take a timeout. That's just a TV timeout. All right, that is a dead ball. That will be a 90-second timeout, just like the other guy the other coach could call a timeout. So that's a 90-second.
I haven't put my head in the high school book. Can a team call a timeout if we adjudicated?
Yeah. Now here's a question, Tom. For example, you're sitting there at the, like we do basketball, at the 5:50 mark, team calls a timeout at the end of the quarter. We charge them the timeout and still do the 90.
Yeah, you still got to charge them. That's what we've been doing.
Still
in
charge
basketball.
them timeout like we do in basketball. Okay, okay, guys. So at 5:50, somebody takes a timeout. It's going to be a 90-second timeout. That team gets charged with the timeout because he stopped the clock. All right. That happened a couple of times in basketball. So you know,
Would
so
the
you gotta
timeout
be
be
aware of
2
that one.
minutes? Our timeout's 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, but these are 90-second. Well, yeah, give them 2 because I
Two.
forgot. Lacrosse gets 2
My
minutes.
timer only goes in my timer only goes 100 seconds, 20 seconds. I don't know if I
whatever.
have 90 seconds of that one. So
Whatever.
I'm going to stop the recording now. If we want to continue this conversation, I'm going to stop the recording here.